Looks like we are all in attendance, so that's good. See any comments from the public now, but we'll give it some more moments. If somebody comes in, we'll do that. And do we need to consider any acts for request for adjustments, Mike? Okay. Good. Takes us to our consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, we have a
I'll
second. Okay, do we have any discussion points on the consent agenda from anyone? I didn't have any. That's good. All right, consent agenda approved. Move on to the regular agenda, and I'll have the SJRA Woodlands Division. Chris? Report.
In your packet on page 18, nothing out of the ordinary, no no violations. I will bring up though, we're on page 22. You will see that we do not have financials yet again. So last month we showed up to April 30th. From May 1st to current, we do not have financials to provide, even internal. I don't have financials just yet. New accounting software can pay our employees and it can pay vendors. However, it cannot tell us the report that are used to seeing just yet. So I've been told that next month we will have all the previous months brought forward and provided to y'all as well as me. So no financials this month. Also goes into when you look at the projects on page 23 forward. The invoice to date is as of April 30th. It is not current. So there's a number of projects on there that should be completed, but until you see the final invoice to date to compare against budget, we're not going to take them off the list. During the hurricane, we had a lot of sites, 56 out of 57 sites lost power, but no service interruptions and no real major issues. Estimate maybe less than $50,000 in damage overall. So
That's good.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Any questions? Be glad to answer.
Chris, at the trustee meeting you shared, I thought would be good for the others to hear kind of the power situation on the facilities, wells. There were some that have backup, some may have to move. Maybe just kind of go through some of that list of stats you shared with us. Would you mind?
Give me 1 second. I sent a presentation out earlier. Let me actually make this link. So we have 57 sites in the Woodlands. That does not mean we have 57 assets. For example, the storage tank is a site, but it could have 2 wells on that site. So all 3 of the wastewater plants have backup generators. 15 of the 29 lift stations have backup generators, meaning they're on site, power goes out, generator comes on. The other 14 lift station sites, we have to actually travel around with a generator, mobile generator. We have 6 mobile generators. So when we say we're working 24/7, we're watching the sites, but also a lot of employees are just trucking on the generators. There's 39 water wells and there's about 14, 15 of them that have backup generators on them. We have 23 booster pumps, 17 of those have backup power. Thing is, when you get to the water plants, for example, you have 2 wells, 5 booster pumps, and then controls and alarms and stuff like that. We have 1 generator. So you could run 2 wells, or you could run 1 well, 3 booster pumps. So it just depends on the situation. We may be shutting off wells, turning on booster pumps, turning off booster pumps, turning on wells. You do not have a complete 100% redundant system. So power goes out. We are relying on GRP to provide water since we do not have 30-something wells on generator power. Knock on wood, it has been resilient for the last 40, 50 years. We have a current project right now of water plants 1, 2, and 3 to take some of the smaller generators and move them around and put bigger generators up in like water plant 3, for example. It's up in the Alden Bridge area. So if we need water in the lower pressure plane, we can always open the valves and send it from Alden Bridge down to Grogan's Mill. A lot of dynamics there, but we've studied it over time. And since Hurricane Ike, 2008, there's been a lot of improvements on the backup. So,
Do you guys have any, I'm sorry.
We'll go around the table out. It sounded like you said that we went to GRP water during the power.
we're relying on it.
Relying.
Right.
100%?
Not 100%. It's still at the 50, 60% range.
Okay,
But
a
if we-
little more during the power.
Right. So if we didn't have GRP's water, there could be drought trigger, or not drought, water conservation trigger.
Okay.
So do you guys have any solar and battery backup or anything?
We do not.
No.
Now, we'll have trickle chargers that are on the solar for the batteries on the generators and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
nothing enough to actually carry any certain load.
Yeah.
Did GRP lose power?
GRP's on Entergy and they lost power until Wednesday afternoon.
Does it have backup?
They do.
Okay.
So the plant itself has 2 generators on site to run the entire facility, plus we have another backup just to push water out. So those 2 big plant generators go down. We have 10 million gallons of water storage. We could still send that out. The kicker is GRP has 18 water receiving facilities. So every water plant that we send water to has controls and valves and stuff there. They each have their own little small control generator there. That the fuel source is paid by that entity. Okay, so the Woodlands pays for that generator's fuel to run in a power outage. So as long as we maintain them, but as long as that entity keeps that fuel supply up, they still get surface water. I bring that up because there's one entity that doesn't pay the bill, so they didn't get surface water.
The diesel fuel on the generators or
Yes.
all natural gas? Yeah, excellent, excellent.
And to also clarify, there was legislation, I think it was after Ike, that came in that required generation or auxiliary power,
Okay.
not specifically generators. So you have to be careful because it said auxiliary power, because you can get alternative electricity generation not through a generator. But it said auxiliary power on all water facilities, not wastewater, but water. So it's a requirement that water facilities have auxiliary power.
It's a good regulation. then.
I think it was after Ike that
Yeah.
was.
It was, and it was enhanced with Senate Bill 3 after the winter storm.
Yeah.
That's where it became Senate Bill 3.
So is there a scenario, one of the questions that came up in our neighborhood was, oh, thank goodness we have water, right? It'd be bad to be out of power, but having running water is really kind of nice. And there was a question about the pressure and are the pumps running? Do the hydraulics from the big tall storage facility create enough hydraulics to keep water running generally, but maybe a pressure down? Could you just describe kind of that pressure profile on how things happen? If we didn't have the backup booster pumps, can the big water tower provide enough hydraulics to push some water somewhere or not?
Maybe 2, depending on when you use it.
Is that it?
Yeah, so the
Okay.
water towers float on the system. There's no pumps there.
Right,
So anything
right.
that's there, all the pressure from there comes from the system itself.
To fill it.
To fill it,
Fill it
there's
up.
not pumps there.
It sits there and
Yeah,
rides and it fills, but with the pressure of the
I
system.
didn't know that.
And there's no pumps to get the water up.
They go in.
Theoretically, the booster pumps do it. I mean,
Yeah, the booster pumps at the water plant, like off the slash line here, got the little subdivision off the South Mill Bend. Those booster pumps fill up the water tower by McCullough High School, as well as by the mall. So those booster pumps way over here, put enough pressure to send it up 100 foot in the air over here by McCullough and over there by the mall as well. So if you don't have the source water coming in, then your pressure is going to get low because I don't have enough to push it out. I have to dial down the pressure, so I have something going out. If the booster pumps are cut down, if I need 4, but I can only run 2, your pressure is going to go low and those towers are going to drop as well. So booster pumps are needed, and so is the source water.
Gotcha.
Those generators are wow. Can't imagine.
It's not attenuated. We put them as many times as we can. We put them in a building as well. So you have the double protection of, we're going to do the installation and the cover and everything else and inside the building.
Do you coordinate all of that at the facility at the dam? At SJR facility,
Which one? So GRP we do.
yeah, but what in the Woodlands where which pumps to run and which, all of it during an event, where do you manage it?
Woodlands office.
Okay.
GRP just manages the tank levels, if you will. So they can see each of the places we send water to and where our tanks are, or where their tanks are. And then if they're getting too full, we'll shut down. If it's too low, we'll kick it on. If they call and say, I need more surface water because I don't have enough wells, send them a little bit more. If they say I need to use my wells, we'll cut it back. All that's GRP, but anything internal to the system, what wells come on, when they come on, set points, booster pumps, all that stuff is Woodlands Division.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Any other questions for Chris? Okay, we'll go to item 10. consider an act on the draft SJRA Woodlands Division budget.
So I have copies of the budget. It's the same one that was presented in May. If somebody wants to print a copy, just let me know. I've got 4 or 5 more I can pass around. Same budget presented in May. Nothing's changed. 2% water, wholesale water rate reduction, wastewater rate stays the same. Those are the 2 you're voting on. GRP was approved at our last board meeting to have a 7% reduction for the Woodlands. Reductions. Awesome.
I had a question on 48, where you're talking about the public communications consultant. Is that the WWA guy? I can't remember his name.
John.
John, yeah.
No,
So who's that? Is that part-time or is that full-time?
the consultant, is it Holloway?
If that's what you're talking about, yeah, it's a hired consultant, PR consultant.
Third party.
I have that page in front of me. What's it say? The PR consultant, 200,000.
That's what the hallway here is next to it over there. And what does the lobbyist do for us?
So the lobbyist was enacted 2.5 years ago or so. So far, just 2 things they've done for us, besides a lot of background work. The first thing they did was Bear Branch Reservoir. The dam itself needs to be redone, and they were able to secure about $3.6 million of that funding. I think it's like 5.5 needed. So a large portion of that they got for us. The other item is lift station 24 on Flint Ridge. It's in the floodplain, needs to be elevated up. And so they were able to go get just under $2 million for us to rehab that lift station.
From like state funds or something, or?
State funds, yeah.
No.
These are federal, is it French?
Yeah, both of those are federal through Renshal's office, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some other things behind the scenes. At the federal level, special districts aren't defined to capture MUDs like you would think. And so for some funding avenues, MUDs don't necessarily qualify because of that problem. And so the lobbyists is helping work with some legislators to try to modify those definitions to better support special district, well, water districts in Texas, since it's not a nationwide really normal thing. So, and there's a number of other things too, like, for instance, there's a lot of state funding out there, but a lot of it has requirements where you have to meet certain demographics, certain rating, if you will, and usually more rural and less affluent areas qualify more so for that type of funding. And the Woodlands is not in that boat. There's a couple districts that are close to the rating system that they have. But so we've been working with the lobbyists to try to see if there's ways to facilitate. My argument is, when the legislation was passed in 2019 that restricted MUDs from increasing their tax revenue beyond 3.5% on developed district, over the previous year, is that sounds great, but it handcuffs these aging districts, older districts. I mean, the ones that are developed are the ones that are about to have to, do something about it. And they have no ability to do that, once this legislation got passed. And so we've been kind of talking about, how are there ways to kind of clean that up a little bit, to facilitate getting at some of these grant and some of these state funding without, even though we don't qualify under the current, way it's set up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we're trying to modify some of those rules behind the scenes. It's another thing they're working on.
So on the next page, on 49, I was just curious what the big differences were on salaries and the next line down, professional fees.
So with salaries, there's a up to 6% merit promotion and market adjustment, which is similar to what we did last year, just not across the board based on performance, everything else. There's been some FTE adjustments. I know the technical services department went up just about 1.4 or 1.5 FTEs. The benefits as well went up about 10% on the budget. So that's most of the salaries, wages, and benefits. On the professional fees, it went up about just a little bit over 200,000. One is we're going to need to do a sixth and final accounting true-up or audit, that's what I'm calling it. It's been since 2017 since we looked at it. And so we want to go through and see if there's been any parcels that have changed, make sure everything's on the up and up with Six and Quantum to kind of get a new baseline, if you will, to go forward from that. There's a lot of money that's been invested. You need to make sure it's clean going forward. So that's 150,000. Another 50,000 was added for the Senate Bill 3 that we talked about earlier from the winter storm. The TCEQ administrator and staff made some changes in November of last year. And so that changes what we're required to do slightly. So we need to make sure our Senate Bill 3 emergency response plan is up to date. So that's a consultant to help us get that up to snuff to stay in compliance. So that's about 200 of the 214.
Any other questions on the budget? We've been through a lot of it.
I got another quick one. On 54, what's the future facilities account?
So let me tell you what it is.
Yeah.
I'm trying to explain all the numbers. So when the interim accountings were done before, like sixth and final accounting, it's actually an interim accounting. Every 5 years, those were done. The proceeds from those sales, if you will, the bonds and money received by the authority, they were put into this account called the future facilities account. That was only for funds that were received from the interim accountings. And those funds were used for only new capacity or regulatory based items. So if I need to replace a ground storage tank, I couldn't use those funds. But if I had to build a brand new one, I would use those funds. So when the sixth and final accounting was done, there was 3 projects that were listed as new capacity. All the funds were put into the sixth and final account or into the future facilities. One of those projects were done. Actually, I think 2 were done. 1 was not done. One was the aeration basins that is part of the wastewater strategic plan master plan. Additionally, any capacity that's sold today, the money's supposed to go into the R&R fund. We put it into future facilities because that's where all capacity funds went to. So long story short, it's only for new capacity that's needed. Once all the projects are done in the sixth and final accounting, future facilities is going to be closed out and all those funds transferred into the R&R fund. Trying to consolidate accounts instead of having 20 different bank accounts with lots of money in it that everybody's trying to chasing. All the funds are put into, handful of accounts that all the projects that are coming from it. So this budget does include closing out future facilities, has about 4.9 million into it, moving those funds into the R&R to help fund the EST number 6 that's proposed at $11 million. That's what trying to use money we have on hand instead of raising rates.
Thank you.
Else, Brad?
Not really.
Okay, then we're approving, I think, right? Isn't that?
The trustee to vote at the
August trustee meeting. Okay, so do we have a
I'll motion.
motion?
I'll
Okay,
second.
second, all in favor? Say aye. Opposed? None? Motion passes. Need to make note of that. Okay. All right, we're on to item number 11, which is a Bear Branch, Panther Branch Research Forest Drive Drainage Improvement Project.
Yeah, no update from last month.
Does that agenda item include the MUD 67 project? There's no update on that one.
That's the project.
Okay, so how much of MUD 47's contribution to that project did they spend? Probably a percentage of our contribution across each MUD got billed a percentage of what they've already
Yeah, it's
expended.
pretty small. I don't recall. We'd have to dig it up.
The whole project was 12 million, right? And I think I heard Donnie say that they've spent 2 million on the modeling.
That sounds
What
about,
they've,
that
okay.
sounds about right.
So,
And then what he reported last month was that the new cost estimates were significantly higher than that. And he's I think it was looking for another 6 or 8 million or so. And so what we reported last month was that project, we're looking at trying to identify if we can find some additional funds through some state funding or federal funding to actually go forward with that instead of coming back to the participant stakeholder MUDs for a cash call for the greater amount. Yeah, so we're trying to look at finding some additional funds through those mechanisms. And if we can't, then we're gonna have to come back to the MUDs and see if we want to go forward with it.
What about,
Or reevaluate and find, something else. I don't know.
have you engaged anybody at the township?
Townships involved, yeah.
At Woodlands,
Through One Water.
the task force?
Yeah,
So they're aware of what's going on and where there might be gaps in funding?
yes.
Okay.
Yes, we've also brought Crenshaw's representative in the meeting as well.
Okay.
So we've been talking to them. We didn't have a meeting this last month. I've just been busy on other things, but we're gonna need to get on it and get, expecting to have a meeting probably in the next few weeks to kind of come back together and talk about what the next step is.
When do you anticipate decisions need to be made? 6 months out
Decision for what?
to whether or not you need more money and where you're gonna get it? Like,
We
when do you have
need
to
more
start?
money. The question is, can we find it?
So,
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to, ideally, because the drainage analysis is complete, that is something typically you kind of need a completed analysis to be able to go to a legislature and say, hey, can you help me with this, And so, and that was confirmed through Crenshaw's office as well, that, yeah, you kind of need to be a little further along. So when we first talked about it, the evaluation wasn't complete. Now that it is complete, we can go out and talk to, I know that some members have talked to some state legislators as well, and sounded like there might be some opportunity that they could maybe help. Where it comes from, I don't know. But
so
that's,
if funding hits the next month or two,
it won't happen that fast. This
6
is
months or 12 months,
Possibly, yeah.
you could start immediately then, once the funding is
No,
approved.
start design. It's only been analyzed, and so, yeah, it would still need to be designed.
Got it, okay.
Yeah. It's been, the drain system there has been modeled, and the proposed solution has been identified. We believe that, subject to full design, that we believe that the analysis would work in terms of meeting the goals, which was to reduce that water surface elevation for a tax day type of event.
If we don't
There at
get,
Research Forest.
if we don't get state or federal funding, is the money that's in that pot earmarked to stay somewhere else instead of coming back to MUD 47, or would it probably come back?
If it's determined that the project's dead, then I would think all the money would go back to
Yeah.
the participating MUDs
Yeah.
for their share, whatever's left. If it came to
It
that.
wouldn't be repurposed. The agreement.
No, yeah.
Specific as to this particular project.
All right, thanks.
There a question on the allocation at all on that?
I had it last month. I think I spoke to it, but I didn't bring it I can get it.
What, we were like
Think-
1.7 million out of the 12?
Is that based on what? Remind me again.
SFDUs,
I
right?
said, I believe it was SFDU. I'd have to go back and look though. There was a pro
When was
rata
that done? I'm trying to remember what was before. I think
It was before. yeah.
several years
Sure.
ago. Yeah.
we were voted in. Could somebody maybe go back and try to find that presentation or something back then when that was done? Or at least give a date or a month. I'm happy to go look for it, but
Yeah, we'll look for it.
there's a,
That's a
there's a,
good
there's a question of allocation that someone's raised in the neighborhood. So I think it's worth, gotta answer it. So,
Allocation on that project.
yeah,
Right.
Yeah, before we were ever involved.
yeah.
And it was,
Somebody watched the meeting and said SFDUs didn't think that's how it was done. Way before you were here and all of us
Oh, I see.
were here. And so I think I'd like to track that down to respond appropriately.
Were those meetings reported?
no,
Not back then.
it would be interesting to go into that. Also, how they arrived at the benefit cost ratio. They had to show that this area keeps flooding. So one of the things in the BCR, the benefit cost ratio, was the entire value of the high school, for example. I think it was 250 million. Well, if the high school flooded, we wouldn't have lost the entire high school. We'd repair it.
Mhm.
And so it wasn't 250 million, but I'm not a professional at
Yeah.
calculating DCR, maybe that's what you do. You just say, oh, well, it smells like mold. Let's condemn it. I don't know. But it would be interesting to revisit the whole thing. It was a difficult time. So it was not as bad as wastewater treatment plant number 1, but there was a lot of fighting among the muds that contributed to the whole thing. And it ultimately got pushed through, yes, but it's interesting.
Okay. Also put that on our future agenda. We'll get down to there. Okay. Yeah, it's been on here. It just keeps me kind of clicking along, but I don't know, any of us have had enough schooling on it.
Yeah, and I've forgotten a lot. I
Yeah,
don't know.
exactly. I think that's a good point. Okay, if that 11's done, we'll move to 12, the best part, the attorney's report.
Trying to find that agreement, I'll keep looking for it here, but I don't have anything on the attorney's report this evening, and the second closed session we talked about, and this one there, we're going to defer that till next month.
Okay.
The next
Okay. Thank you, Ryan. All right. Eric, we're going to the GM's report.
A good chunk of what I was going to talk about, just about the storm, just to give some further insight.
Yeah.
As to how Woodlands Water handled things. We had folks here in the morning of the storm. We lost power mid-morning, and at that point, they were unable to really continue doing any work. So they ventured back out to their homes, et cetera. We kind of developed, myself and staff developed a system where we could, kind of a text group system where we could communicate back and forth. Our customer service folks were able to receive customer service calls, and then they were able to distribute out work orders for our field staff to still address things in the field. So all of that continued on through Monday. Several of us jumped back out in the community only around noon or so, when the eye was generally kind of passed and the worst was theoretically over. Although it misted the rest of the day, but it still was windy.
Yeah.
So we drove around to some of the hot spots that we're aware of. I was curious on the drainage front, looking at it live. In fact, Laura and I were texting back and forth on some different areas that I went and looked. So appreciate that insight. But we kind of had a wait and see the next day on whether or not we were going to have power. And so we were planning to open, and we kind of had a stop time that if we didn't get, power by X hour, then we were going to stay home and continue on with the current procedure. That occurred on Tuesday. We put it into place on Wednesday, but Wednesday at 3 a.m. or so, 3:30, the power came back on. So we're up and running on Wednesday. Most of the calls that we received were related to a house that had damage, like a tree hits the house, breaks the line inside, and they need the water to be turned off because they can't stop it, or they didn't know how. So those types of things. And then some trees where the actual root system rips up their private line, and same thing, they need the water turned off. So there was I don't know where it came from, but rumor that there was boil water notice in the Woodlands. That never was true. Right. And well, many.
Lot down there, yeah.
In Montgomery and Harrison. In fact, there was a note that was put out by I think the Chronicle that there was some in Montgomery County as well. And so I think people grabbed that and said, well, we're in Montgomery County, it must be us. And it never was.
Yeah, but it listed all the subdivisions
It did,
in Montgomery
but you had
County,
to
and they
read
were,
the article.
yeah.
The headline warriors didn't get there. But
And you guys put an email out too, right?
we did. So yeah, it was, I mean, this was kind of a test of systems really. And this is my first run at kind of going through a natural disaster in this position. I've been through a number of them over the years, but John was out of town leading up to it and was stuck in Seattle trying to get back. And so he's in a hotel room and I'm on my patio, and we're writing up the customer notice, to say, hey, your water is safe and uninterrupted. So that went out early Wednesday morning. I believe that notice went out. And I think we'll look at some things that we did as far as WWA and how we handled it behind the scenes and look at what worked and maybe what we could improve on and try to build off of it for next time. A little concerned that, you know, the forecast for the year looks like we may not be out of the woods,
Yep.
but we'll see. Hopefully not. But I think we also learned what the positioning of a hurricane means to your damage. Because 50 miles, through a category 3, 50 miles east doesn't maybe do what a category 1 direct hit looks like.
Yeah.
Whatever. But anyway, so I think we got through pretty well. As Chris mentioned, water system stayed in play and we were able to, and you know, the quicker so you were talking about earlier how the system works and as everyone continues to use water, they're not out at work. So they're now at home and they're still using water. And so the system only has a certain amount of, I mean, if it's not pumping in, it only has a certain amount of time until it just drains. So it also is very important that we're able to respond quickly to turn off water that's running erroneously, that doesn't need to be running. So it's really a team effort. And obviously they operate all the facilities, but we've got to make sure that, you know, on the customer side that we're not using more water than we should be in a hurricane, you know. So it's important that we all work together, and we did. I think that went really well. You know, some of the communications, as we've all experienced during these types of things, is not always 100%, you know, but we were able to get texts to work pretty good on our front for the most part. Some of us had generators, some don't. I mean, that's the thing. You're just trying to work it all through. You know, what, 5 days before, it wasn't even supposed to hit Texas,
Right,
you know,
right.
you know, in Mexico, but that's what it is. So it went pretty well.
Good job.
I think having a, an emergency response plan is really important. We would often do a desktop and like pretend, right? Okay, we're gonna lose power at 11, storm's coming through at 3. What do we do? And some people bug out and get where there's going to be, where that's when you know where the storms are going to be. Even communications, sometimes moving to getting off of phones and your regular service, moving to an app like WhatsApp for someone, for example. Some groups use that because sometimes you had internet but just didn't have cellular service, right? Some groups would buy sat phones, just so you know, because if you've got to control things, maybe from the dam down here or someplace, because something can be going there. So I think it's worth getting everyone's feedback on it and getting it documented so people have a document, they know what to do, they know how to respond beforehand.
Yeah, we have a
Good practice.
phone system that has an app capability, and that's how our staff were receiving customer calls.
Yeah.
At home.
Yeah.
And text. That's right. You can stay on the phone from there.
That's great.
And that was working. They were still getting the calls.
Yeah.
So
Good.
yeah,
Yeah, well done. Well, congratulations to everyone for working hard. That's
Yeah, I can't believe you drove home in that mess on Monday. Wow.
Eric, did you see those news articles on the Lake Livingston Dam failure or potential failures coming up? One of the reasons I was thinking about it is because there's another one in Illinois that they talked about today, and I was like, wow, that's 2 in 1 like week. I was just curious. I know that's Trinity River Authority. I didn't know if something did happen, if that could affect us downstream from there.
no, that would not affect us at all. That doesn't come to us.
like Houston.
It would, he would.
Trinity River.
Yeah.
Sure. Wanted to remind everybody that next week will be a busy month, or next month will be a busy month. We've got a budget and tax recommendations to go over, the preliminary numbers and things. So it'll be a busy month next month. And then I did want to report that Mike Mooney is going to be retiring, and this will likely be his last set of meetings. He's going to retire as of August 1. And hate to see him go so soon, but got big shoes to fill for me. I do have feelers out and are trying to work on a replacement, and I'll likely try to ask that he help with some of the transition, maybe on a part-time basis going forward, but we'll work through it.
So,
Yeah, happy to do it.
Thanks, Mike.
Congratulations, Mike.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Exciting time.
And with that, got John?
I do see Mike's got his golf stocks on.
Yeah, already transitioning.
Yeah.
Let's see, did everyone grab a supplemental?
Yeah.
I need
Oh, I missed it, John. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So hopefully you did see the water quality report from your home recently. So those get mailed out to every household or every customer, rather. And then we also push that out through all of our channels. We really try to get the word out on those. And then that lives online year round at water.org. I put some,
Hey, John, on that, sorry, will
Yeah.
PFAS results be showing up in there once those results are coming back? Will it be part of that report or is that gonna be a separate?
They're found.
Sorry?
If they're found, they're detected.
But will it show up like as an item with a range and then just like the rest of the stuff, right?
It's
Okay.
like
'Cause
acceptable.
I don't think it was on that yet. It's not, so the next cycle of that we should see that.
Again, if they're detected, you don't have to report them if they're detected, they're not detected. The only thing we've detected thus far is lithium.
Okay.
In any of the drugs. We haven't tested mud 36 yet, we haven't tested mud 39.
Right.
2 or 3 of the 4 ones haven't been tested yet.
Right, I saw that.
Tested.
Yeah.
The only ones that detect anything, lithium. Detected all.
Is it in range? We know. Is there a range?
That's why it's. You'll see it on the report. It's in your district, in mud 47.
Yeah.
You'll see the report for lithium.
Yeah.
Again, it's above the recommended range. It's not a violation. There's nothing
Mm-hmm.
wrong. They're just trying to gather all the information across the country about PFAS. Lithium is one of those PFAS.
Yeah. And we never tried to detect that before, right? So it's
We never did.
tested for it,
And
sorry.
we've talked to Chris and the operations, so maybe it was lithium grease in the wells and stuff like this. So it must be naturally occurring somewhere.
And these are in the wells, not, does GRP do the same testing, I assume?
Well, we don't do the UCMR testing at our locations because y'all do it on your side. But we went back after getting these samples from Mike, we went back and tested the raw water at the GRP, so in the lake,
Yeah.
coming out of GRP, then at the wells. GRP in the lake was fine. It's all related to the wells. Lithium's naturally occurring, so.
I understand.
All our greases and everything else is food grade, no lithium included, so only thing we can deduce is that it's coming from the ground naturally occurring.
Oh, the fluoride does. That's there, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Arsenic and, hydrosulfide, a lot of other things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Going around 1,500, putting around a lot of things.
Okay, right, thanks.
the only other thing I wanted to point to was to make sure, you would see that piece in Woodlands Community Magazine on construction renewal. So that goes out to all 43,000 homes in the Woodlands. That's now bi-monthly. And then it's online, it's the township website as well. So check that out if you haven't seen it. And with that,
You talking about the Woodlands Community Magazine one? Is that what you're saying,
Yeah.
John?
yes, Woodlands Community
I
Magazine.
tried to click on that on the email and it took me to a invalid link.
Yeah, their website was down.
Oh, is that what it
Yeah.
was? Okay.
I sent it to the township, it said, it's not your computer. It told me that their website was down. So I sent it to
Huh.
Ann Snyder.
I actually read the emails.
Thanks. That makes me feel a little better about the link, but that's unfortunate.
Yeah,
Thanks. Okay.
I was out there too, trying to find out, when I would get my debris removed. Still at the curb. by
I
the
took
way.
care of it today because they never came.
Might be a while.
Yeah, I did read, I think it was from the township that the commissioner noted that it would start today. I don't know what, and it would go the next few days. They had the name of, I don't know what the company was, a company coming in with large equipment and large
Yeah,
haul.
they were all over the place
We
today.
saw 'em,
Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
It's all FEMA money too. It's paying for that.
We did help push that message. We shared that. We thought that was important to get forward out on. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Eric, anything else on the? I thought I'd share that I don't know if anyone watched the trustee meeting. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Did you guys see it at all? Just maybe chat about it just a little bit. So the recommendation for the wastewater reclamation facility was discussed in great detail. There's 4 options that are listed there. Replace in place, repair in place, replace with conventional, I guess, new conventional technology, and then new membrane technology. And so I think that was a good discussion at the end of the day. A lot of perspectives shared. Probably what had a little bit more of a discussion was a discussion point was brought up about having the water agency also do its own analysis of the repair in place study. It wasn't a action item. It was just a discussion that was brought up. That would have been a 5th option. So I think at the end of the day, we all shared our thoughts and perspectives about it. I did support the repair in place option from the original 3 that were put in there. So that's where the 4 came from. I don't really support the 5th one personally, but if it ever gets up to a point where we have to talk about it, we'll certainly talk about it here and see what that's all about. But that was one main topic, and then the committees got some discussion. There was a question about how do the trustee committees get determined, who appoints. It's pretty clear, I think, that the president of the trustee has the power to appoint committee members. I think there are 2 vacancies that came from Kyle May's departure. And so I think Bob will do his thing. But there was, I guess, a good discussion and question of, how does that happen? How many are there? Who decides? That was kind of all the process. Brian provided some insight on what's required and what some of the regulations decide. And I think the audit committee is the only one that's really kind of mandated, and the others are kind of developed. Right now, the communication committee or the public education committee is what it's really called, is a ad hoc committee. I think Eric proposed that it become a standing committee that we think will be communicating for a long time, like forever. So maybe we should just formalize it. So
There's a lot to communicate.
Yeah.
I had to watch that bit about Kent Maggart's thing a couple times to try to understand it, but it looked to me like he was saying he wanted to, what should have happened is they should have just combined those 2 motions, even though he didn't have an act on there, I guess. He just had discuss. But it seemed like he wanted to have an independent outside of what we voted on, right? For the 4 different things. And instead of comparison, he just wanted to see what it would cost to repair. I don't know. It was a little
What
confusing.
it says in here, rehabilitating, number 1, to extend life by 25 years. So that's how it's written in the notes.
Which is essentially what you're going to get with the 4th one that was added to the other 3.
Yeah, it was hard to understand.
But it seemed like the
difference.
thing that was
Yeah.
different about it was supposed to be independent.
Yeah.
That's someone
Different
different.
consultant,
Hasn't been involved and doesn't have.
There is going to be someone
Yeah,
new.
there is.
Yeah.
4 of them. The vote was to get an independent.
Yeah.
This is a 4th independent.
Oh.
Yeah,
okay.
this is another
Okay.
independent of the independent. So it seems like we have checkers checking checkers.
Well,
But
we just had Independence Day.
so
Probably it.
One other kind of key point that I thought was very interesting, and I think you may have even suggested it at the meeting, but it was also talked about developing a couple things, developing a decision matrix, decision criteria matrix, essentially to identify some parameters that, when this analysis is done, how do we make the decision? We just pick the cheapest one, or there's going to be pros and cons, and there's going to be costs, and there's going to be, things that, parameters that you'll want to maybe weigh differently. And so I think it was by November, there would be a draft of that from this new consultant that would look at that. And then my understanding is I would take that, and then we would discuss it at the trustee level, and then likely at the board level as well after that. So that was another thing. And then the other thing was really kind of revamping the supplemental, this whole process of the supplemental, and how that's developed. So more to come.
Yeah, I think the idea there is we have some decision criteria to make a decision on based on the data, and then we have a decision point that then has some legs to it, right? So that we basically commit to deciding to what we ever decide we want to have happen, and then future MUDs just won't kind of undo it, and we get to where we are again a decade down the road and it gets undone.
So is that criteria going to be at the trustee level, or is it going to come down to the MUDs to go up to the
Yes,
trustee?
yes, and yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be very transparent. We'll all get involved in it and we'll have a heck of a time.
Sounds like a plan.
So it was a good discussion. It was a long meeting, went late, but I thought it was a good discussion. Anything else? Anything for Eric on that? Okay, good. Don't need to go to closed session, you said. So that we don't have to reconvene. That's good. Still don't have any folks from the public. So items for future agenda, I guess we can put on maybe the Panther Bear Branch.
I like to call it Mud 67 project because we've also got the dam and it confuses.
They're paying the lion's share of it,
So
so.
it's on the agenda. Do you want it?
Yes, I did pull up the agreement, so you are 15%.
The question is how is that determined?
Yeah, and I think we need to visit with Jim Stinson about that, because my recollection was, I think there was an EFC component, but the cost numbers were still high, and 47 at the time had some limitations on ability to contribute. I'm trying to remember what the additional funds that you had on hand. And Metro agreed to come into the mix and pay $1 million flat, even though they weren't technically in the watershed. But because the mobility from research to get people to the commercial area, they felt like it was in Metro's interest to participate. And so they put in a flat $1 million. So I don't think it's going to end up neatly in terms of connection, but we can ask Jim Stinson, who was involved with that process, what his recollection is. Because it's not in the agreement, it's just these are the percentages between the various parties. And I remember Metro coming in, but in terms of the remainder of the connections, I want to visit with Jim about that.
Yeah, I think that's worth just kind of refreshing that the logic or just how that happened, and does it still hold? Does it still stand? Does it make sense? Right?
Great.
We've got an agenda item. We have to get the history.
I'll dig into it.
Okay, thanks.
I'd like to put on discussing and acting upon opening our meetings with a prayer. I don't need all the pledges and 20 minutes of prayer, but a quick prayer before we open up, I think would be important.
I'm good with that.
Thought about that. We do at the trustee meeting. I don't have any problem with that at all.
I'm a chaplain. I'll do it.
Boom.
All right, starting next meeting, I will
I
hear a
love it when you
prayer.
volunteer for stuff. I mean, all the time.
I'm always there. I'll
You
do it.
always
You
volunteer.
get every meeting?
I know.
Do you
I'll do
share?
that. What?
Do you share or you get every meeting?
Every what?
To pray before the meeting? Do you get every prayer?
Just about.
No, he's asking, are you going to do all
Are
the
you gonna
prayers,
share?
or are we going to go around?
Oh, I
Round
will
robin?
take the responsibility, but if any of you have an item that you want included in the prayer,
Oh,
then you send it to me. Because I mean, disasters could happen, right? So if we had another incident like Beryl and that, maybe we would be praying for all of those that lost their home and lost their, so we'll take it on what's going on in the community for that particular month. Yep.
ready, Brad?
Perfect. Thanks, Brad.
Sure.
All right. That's it then.
That's it.
We are done at
Favorite number.
6:45 and we're
Hey.
adjourned.
I still beat you. The one